We're talking to Ryan again today and talk a little bit more about PPC search. Following our previous conversations, it can get so in depth, and how do we go from the basics to something a little bit more in depth? You talk a little bit about, it's easy to go, I've got $100, let me give it to, we'll use Google because they're the big one, right?
Right.
And say, give me some opportunities, right? And they come in, and you get a lot of opportunities because you're paying for every click, but a lot of times you're peeking out at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
There's so much to it. What are some basic things that can be done to make that more productive for you? And let's go a little bit more in depth of what it really can do for you.
Yeah. Well, I think in regards to, especially you mentioned $100, right?
Yeah.
And so when
it could be 10 grand if you want. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Well, what I was going to say is, when you're dealing with a smaller budget, there used to be a platform called AdWords Express.
Right.
It made it stupid simple that you would just, hey, I am a florist, I'm in Fort Worth, and I have $100. And they would go find you opportunity. They would optimize time of day, they would optimize what keywords, they would optimize all of that for you.
Right.
So recently that went away. So we're going to see a huge influx of people who don't know what they're doing with the AdWords platform. So
yeah, and if it's $100 or $1,000, you're talking about a daily spend. It's significant because
Right.
It's not about the amount; it's about the percentage of what you're spending, right?
Right. And so I think more and more people are now going to not understand the platform, right? They're going to come in and go, I don't understand. How do I pick keywords? How do I pick targeting? And so one of the things that I always look at when you're trying to now go, you've picked your keywords, right? You've set up these are the boxes, and they help you run through that, right? So ad groups are based on categories.
So you
on
still
your
can
website.
do it yourself if you have to do it that way.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a little bit more difficult.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
The platform is not as easy as going, I'm a florist, I'm here, and answering a few basic questions, and it builds it for you.
Right.
Now it is, hey, based on your website, your ad group should be the product categories of your website,
Right.
and then each one of those should have keywords that are specific. So if you're talking about athletic shoes, right, that should be athletic shoes as an ad group, and then within that it's Nike shoes and Adidas shoes and all these others, and please don't got us in trouble with copyright. But all of those things, right? So those kinds of things are the way that AdWords tells you to set it up, and that's very basic level. Like their guide that walks you through it when you set up your new account will do all of that. What they don't touch is things like time of day targeting and bid adjustment and remarketing and all these other things that really go a lot more in depth. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, right? So
that's taking you to that deeper level.
Absolutely.
So when we get into there. Okay.
Yeah, so time of day targeting is you can actually turn on and off your ads at specific times a day, right? So a great example of this is you're a medical clinic, right? And you only want what's called click-to-call ads. People that are searching for a doctor, make an appointment today, that type of ad, right? To only run when your office is actually open. Best case scenario there is you're doing a click-to-call ad that is only targeted towards the hours that you're open within your 25-mile radius, so people could actually get to you very quickly. Right? That's how you would set up that type of campaign. So really pushing that forward, that's how you take that next step, right? You look at time of day targeting. Another one that we always play with optimization is bid adjustment. So looking at device, right? Do we want more mobile traffic? Do we want more desktop traffic? Sometimes you want more desktop, right? So you can actually adjust, let's say it's 50%. And our bid is $1, right? We can adjust it up 50% for desktop traffic. And what that does is now Google knows they can actually bid another 50 cents more than what they do on mobile.
Well, you're talking about bidding now, and what you're talking about really is everybody who is fighting for that keyword, right?
Yeah, there's a lot more that goes into it than just throwing more money.
But in general terms, right? That's how people look at it, right? So talk a little bit more about that in-depth piece of it there.
Yeah, so the algorithm is actually based on like where you show up in the page and who wins on what bids, and all that happens literally in an instant. There's actually a ticker down at the bottom of every Google search you do, and it'll tell you how many results came in and how long it took them to actually run those results.
Okay.
So that's
That's kind of cool.
Fun thing to play. Us nerds, we get excited about those things.
I'm glad you do.
Yeah, so I always love to see, like, does a long tail keyword take extremely long, or is it short tail?
Right.
Yeah. So what's surprising, it's actually the opposite. So short ones do take longer because there's so much more information.
You're definitely nerding out now.
Yeah, sorry. So so basically, when you're looking at what happens when a bid happens, there's multiple factors that go into it. A is obviously the cost. What are you willing to pay for that?
Right.
Your daily budget that's remaining will go into a factor. There's actually two algorithms that are running for budget. One is daily and one is monthly. And so when you go through your AdWords certification, you'll actually find out that you're supposed to take the daily budget times 30.4. And that is supposed to be your monthly budget, right? So if your monthly budget is 1,000, you would take 1,000.
Now, and I'm going to stop you here for just a second because this is really important.
Yes.
If that's not done correctly, all of a sudden your $1,000 budget could be hitting $1,000 a day.
Yes.
And it could eat you up in a hurry.
Yeah.
So it's really important to pay attention to those details because they do get missed quite often.
Absolutely. So Google's PPC runs off of a daily budget. Facebook, LinkedIn, some of the social channels, they're all a little bit different, right? Some run off of daily.
Yeah.
LinkedIn is my favorite because it runs off of a monthly that you set and a daily cap that you set. And so that's very nice to be able to control your budget, but also make sure that your monthly budget doesn't go over.
Right.
So for AdWords specifically, what you're going to want to do is take your monthly budget, which is what most people have. They don't have a daily budget. They just don't think that way. You can, and that's fine, and then you're ready to go because you just put in your daily budget. But if you have a monthly budget, say it's $1,000, you would take 1,000 divided by 30.4. That will give you the daily budget amount that you should be putting in. And that's across campaigns at that point, right? So the other thing that you have to think about, and a lot of people don't realize this, is when you're setting up different campaigns within AdWords, all of those run on their own budget, right? So if you take 1,000 and that's your maximum budget and you divide it by 30.4, the total of all of those campaigns has to come in under that amount.
Right.
So that's where a lot of people get into trouble because they don't realize that.
There, right?
Right.
So talk to me a little bit about, if you can get a little confusing with terminology, right? So
Absolutely.
You got search, PPC, pay-per-click, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few more that are in there as well. So break that down. We're all talking about the same thing at that point?
Yes, for the most part, right? If you think about it in very broad terms, it kind of goes AdWords, right? And that's Google's platform.
Right.
And they're the best.
Right.
Then there's Bing, right? And at that point, you're talking about a search-specific campaign. So even within AdWords, you have search, you have display, you have video, you have shopping, you have all these different varieties, right? What we're talking about in the search ads that you see in Google search results.
When you're searching. Yeah.
So that's very specific. They're text ads is what Google calls them, right? So AdWords, search, are text ads. That's what it's called.
Okay.
PPC is literally anything that you are paying per click. That's how you're charged, right? So there's PPC, PPM, there's PPA. So that is cost, basically, think of it of how you're charged. So that's pay per click, pay per 1,000 impressions. That's PPM. And then PPA is pay per lead. Basically, it's acquisition, right? The terminology also goes into the metrics as well. So when you're looking at a AdWords search ad, you will see what your cost per click is, right? In display ads, it's going to be cost per 1,000 impressions, which is M, right? So when you're talking about a PPM campaign, you will have a metric that says CPM, right?
Right.
And so that's kind of how you know what type of campaign.
So just in the brief discussion we've just had,
Yeah.
a lot of detail, right?
Absolutely.
And I can see smaller businesses more than others, but small or companies that have a new marketing department maybe. These are places you need to be. These are where 90%, even more than that at times, are searching. So you got to know how to do it, but if you don't, you can get surface level, you're not going to get as much bang for your buck, it doesn't sound like.
No, and I think the way search is changing is drastic at this point.
Right.
we're seeing costs continuing to rise, more opportunities and better opportunities in other platforms such as social, right? You can also spend the same amount of money in other aspects of your business, such as like SEO, which won't immediately return like PPC does.
Long-term play,
Yeah, it's a much longer-term play, but could eventually replace the amount of leads that you're having from PPC. It would just take time. But you're also not at the whim of the rising costs of PPC at that point. So there's a lot going on, but PPC, specifically the search ads, are really starting to become in jeopardy because you can't, it's been so long that they've been used. Competition is so great that specifically industries like car dealerships,
right.
and they are it's detrimental at this point, right, for their business. To try to jump in as a new person is extremely difficult.
Let me ask you this then. So we know that's the case. Not everybody believes that, right?
Right.
A lot of it comes down to trust. It's something we have to overcome every day.
Yeah.
And when we do this type of work for a client, so and even when you've gained the trust and you start showing monthly reporting of here are the results, we should get more like this. This may go down a little bit. It was a great month. We talk through all of that.
Right.
A lot of times you kind of see the glazed over look, right? A little bit.
Yeah.
Almost like I don't know if I believe you or not type of thing. Any thoughts on how you overcome that?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult.
That's a tough question, isn't it?
Yeah. Put me on the spot.
Yeah, of course.
So you
can't solve it for everybody, right? Trust is a big thing you earn, not just in a project like this, right?
I think the way we think about it is different, right? Where from the beginning we are giving clients access to their accounts. We are not trying to hide anything.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah.
Right. So I think when I get a glazed over look from a client, it's typically that they're just not understanding, not that they're not trusting. Right.
I got you. That's a good point.
Because I try to read the room when I present and go, okay, I lost some people, right? And let me pull back. Maybe you don't understand that. Let me explain that a little bit better, right? But I think if it comes down to trust, the best way to do it is just hand them the keys, right? And go, you can check for yourself, right? And there's tools within AdWords like.
But I think that's the thing, though. They can't. They want to. They want to see it, and even what you find sometimes is if you let the client in to do that and they don't have a good understanding, we know if they do or not.
Yeah.
And we don't have a lot of challenges here, but it's a very common story that we hear, right?
Right.
You'll see a number, or they'll see a number, if you will, right? And go, wow, that should be higher, or it was higher last. Why is this number weird? And you're digging into the weeds at this point, having to validate and talk about every little nuance of every little thing, which is not going to resonate.
No,
right?
and I think so. There's multiple points to that, right? First and foremost is the length of the campaign, right? So the history of the account has a huge importance on that.
Right.
Being able to compare year to year, where were you last year versus this year, and that is a comparison you can easily pull within AdWords and go, hey, look, guys, like numbers are up, like significantly, right? Like maybe sales aren't up. We'll look at that. Right, that's a totally different problem.
Oh, it is.
Within the business, right?
That's a good point.
But leads are up. Okay, what do we need to do? Right?
Are they the right leads?
Are they the right leads?
Are we not closing the leads? We're not saying the right thing.
Maybe the business opened another location, and so they have more overhead costs. They have more things, so they don't see the revenue side.
Well, you also have the side of it if you're running ads, or doing other marketing tools that will also boost your campaigns.
Absolutely.
A lot of times because people say, "Oh, there it is. I'm going to click on it." Right?
Yeah, and that's where I said. PPC is really at a crux right now where it has to change. But as an advertiser, you have to think about these things very differently now. So a lot of campaigns that we run, we add in a campaign that's specifically towards branded keywords, right?
Right.
Your name. And every client is like, why do I have to pay for my name? Because I changed the ad copy of that ad to match the Facebook ad copy that I'm running over on Facebook. Because people don't trust things on social networks. And so they oftentimes... They may click it, right?
Right.
We do see that because we see results. But what we do find is there's a much bigger uplift, right? You can look at Google Analytics, which has nothing to do with advertising and just in marketing in general. It's a marketing tool. And you will notice there's an uplift as soon as you start running ads. just purely from brand awareness that's going on.
Which for all of our audience, people listening now, if you don't have Google Analytics hooked up onto your website, get it, right?
Yeah.
Number one thing, right?
Number one thing.
Do it. It's free. Get it done.
Yeah. I always tell people, hey, like if you don't have that, you're losing some of the most vital information about your business.
Right. And that's some good data if you'll really take the time to look into it. Even if you do the surface level of looking, it gives you lots of great information. So we can talk a lot more about this and get super in depth.
Right.
You know, and we'd be happy to do that. If anybody has specific questions, they can leave a comment. Let us know. We'll be happy to answer those, of course. One thing I do want to touch on, though, which is extremely important, I think, that nobody knows, and we have a lot of nonprofits, especially in our marketplace, right?
Yeah.
You want to talk about the Google grants,
grant?
you know, that type of thing?
Yeah, so Google has a program called Google for Nonprofits. It gives nonprofits access to multiple different tools that they can use. One is as a for-profit company, we have to pay for, but the email service so you can have your whatever your company name is, but it goes into a Gmail, right? Which is super user-friendly.
Absolutely.
It makes it much easier to set up new users. It makes it easy to set up groups and all those kinds of things. They get that for free. They also get, and this is one of the bigger benefits, is they get $10,000 of free advertising.
That's a very big benefit.
So that's $10,000 a month,
which
which is huge. The problem that they run into is managing it well. So there's stipulations on that. It used to be like you couldn't bid over $2. Well, they get rid of all that because they realize the rising costs. It's just impossible for somebody to compete.
And if somebody doesn't understand it really well, it just makes it more complex, confusing. To go get a free $10,000, right? It's not worth it at that point, right?
Yes and no, right? I would say if you're a nonprofit and you have absolutely no idea what you're doing in there, the best thing that you can do, so one of the stipulations is you have to keep at a 5% click-through rate.
Right.
So that means out of the impressions that your ad was shown, at least 5% clicked on them, right? What I would do is if you're a nonprofit, start branding keywords, and that's it, right?
But not necessarily looking to have people donate or have people do anything. It's here's who we are, here's what we're about, and think about creative headlines.
Yes.
To get to gain interest, so people start to understand who you are, right, and then build from there.
Yeah. Well, you get to craft that message, right? And that's the nice part about ads is it's not SEO, and so it is a little bit easier to go in and craft whatever title you want and the description you want it to look, and the what we call ad extensions, which is a little bit more advanced, but adding those in so you can go to the About Us page, the Donate page, the Contact Us page, whatever those are, right? Adding your phone number, if you have it tied to your Google My Business. I mean, all this is a little bit more complex, but realistically what's happening is even if you're only going after your branded keywords at that point, you are providing 2 placements on page 1 of Google, right? You have your ad and you have your organic. Right? You're there twice, and then based on the way Google Maps comes in now, you're probably there too, right? As long as you're localized to that person. So,
yeah, getting through Google and all the things they have, I struggle with it at times. You know this. I've got a Google issue, come fix it for me. That's pretty much how I roll, and I feel like I'm decent with technology, you know. My wife might not agree with that, but that's why I had kids.
Some of the office staff would not agree at all.
I don't know about that either.
It's fine.
Let me know who they are.
Sure.
We can get that worked out. So I appreciate you talking a little bit more into that.
Yeah.
Like I said, if there are additional questions that you have, there can be a lot, and there's a lot to it. Call us. You know, drop us a comment down below. We'll do our best to answer it at that point. But if you call us, we can definitely talk to you. Or come by and see us. We'd love to have you.